Hello everyone, great to be here. Joe and I are really happy to be sharing some of our thoughts on digital transformation and e-commerce from our time together at Britvic. Let me just share my screen and just hold on one second. Hopefully everybody can see that. So look, before we get into detail on digital transformation, let me just share a few thoughts about where I've come from. My own journey is, I spent about 20 years working at Unilever in a variety of commercial and category strategy roles. And then since leaving Unilever, I've been working with a number of startup companies. They're direct-to-consumer native brands, developing business models with them and route to market. And then I'm also been working with a number of FMCG companies, largely around, well, certainly in the last year, around how we transition into a post-COVID world and what COVID means for business strategy. But also I've done a lot around e-commerce and digital transformation. And that's what brought me into Britvic about 2 years ago. Now, before we get into what we did at Britvic, I think digital transformation is sort of very casually thrown into many conversations at the moment, along with customer experience or UX. This gets banded around quite often. For me, when I think about digital transformation, it's really about connecting commercial and marketing teams together in the organization, principally through data insight. That's sort of the glue that holds digital transformation together. And what this enables us to do is to deliver the right customer experience tailored to the shopping mission seamlessly across all of the different channels of distribution, as well as channels of communication. And that means that they don't need to be digital only channels. This is as much about traditional and digital channels being merged and mixed together in a way that creates real value. That for me is what I think of when I think of digital transformation. And this is really an evolution. And I started with Britvic, as I said, about 2 years ago, and we went together on quite a journey. And I'm going to break that journey down into 3 steps. The first of those is around e-commerce execution. And I think it's quite common for a lot of organizations that they start with this. They start with a focus on how are we showing up online, thinking about how do we make sure that our brands are really fit for purpose in the e-com space as that becomes more and more relevant. Very often this is driven by the commercial teams, although marketing teams will be working in parallel perhaps on understanding social media and digital channels. But very often at this stage, they're not really talking together. We're not really creating value from our marketing and sales or commercial teams working together. And very often, and as was also the case in Britvic 2 years ago, this would be driven by a e-commerce center of excellence, which is part of the commercial team. That's kind of what I joined. Now, I'm not going to spend a massive amount of time on this section because I know that now, a lot of organizations are already really far down the road of getting, fit to win with the e-commerce fundamentals, things like hero imagery and search engine optimization, being first in search, those kind of things. But just to focus in on maybe some of the things that we found really valuable, certainly at Britvic, was laying out those e-com fundamentals, those execution basics, laying them out as part of a shopper journey, a simple shopper journey, being present, being found, be engaging, close the sale. We found that it helped the teams to really make sense of otherwise what can appear for non-e-commerce people in the organization. It really helped them make sense of what we were trying to achieve. It also helps to focus in on the right things at the right time. In my experience, we spend a lot of time talking about things like hero imagery, and that's fantastic. But the reality is that getting hero imagery perfect is absolutely no good at all if you don't have the right range, right pack size, availability, really important online. Get those things right. They're at the start of the journey. Being present is much more important than being engaging if you don't get that right up front. You'll see that we focused in on a few, just 7 or 8 key parts of the journey as well. We didn't focus on ratings and reviews at that time. That was because search, visibility, and taxonomy or navigation are the things that we found were really the ones that were driving the ads to basket. And so we zoomed in on those. And I think that's an important part as well of doing this journey, this execution basics. It's also really important to make sure that you are focusing in on the few things that are going to make a difference rather than being overwhelmed by the million things that otherwise we could be getting involved with. We found that making a simple scorecard, therefore, was really, really important. And we focused that scorecard very clearly around just 7 KPIs, 7 execution fundamentals that we had to get right. And we measured those through eFundamentals, and obviously there are other data providers out there. One of the things that we found important here was that we didn't just open out the eFundamentals dashboard to the whole organization or to the whole commercial team. Because although it's a brilliant tool, and what we found is that, these are people in our organization who are really busy, trying to run the offline business as well as the online business. So when you present them with all of the data that you could do through these dashboards, the problem is that they tend to get a bit lost in a rabbit warren of different things. And so we zoomed them in and we kept this traffic light chart very simple and top line, and it's literally a red, amber, green, and they could measure that every week. And what you'll also see here is that we have tried to make sure that each part of this journey was owned by different parts of the organization. And again, I think it's really important that when we think about e-commerce and online, we're not just, trying to own it as an e-com team. You've got to make this into everybody's business. And so we assigned clear roles and responsibilities to each part of the journey to be responsible by a different part of our organization. And to help those parts of the organization to really respond appropriately and to be able to do the job of e-commerce job and online role that we were setting for them, it's also really important to set out some good capability building. Lunch and learn sessions, for example, a toolkit that showed them as well, exactly what best practice looked like. If you're a brand manager and you've now been set the task of making sure that all your hero images look brilliant, you need a simple guide that explains what brilliant is and why it's brilliant so that they can replicate that and learn from it and do it efficiently and effectively and consistently. So that's just a little bit there on e-commerce execution. But frankly, that's really important, but it's absolutely not enough. And about this time is where Joe kind of brought me into Britvic, really, was to go to the next stage, to focus on more of the midterm thinking about how do we make online from just being about execution basics to really being a part of our business strategy. And I think this is really important. It's important that we get hearts and minds of the organization aligned between around the online opportunity. And the first thing to do is to be really clear on how online is going to evolve. It's a simple question. In 3 or 5 years' time, how big will my online business be? And what percentage of my total business will that online business represent? And it's really often, and quite surprisingly, I find, a question which does not have a simple answer in many, many organizations. The first step to answering that question and building a strategy is to be really clear on a simple model that will help to project the likely growth and contribution of online to total soft drinks. And that's what we built at Britvic. So we built this model. It gave us a vision about how big online would be over the next 5 years. We built it by subcategory, and we took a view on how each retailer and subchannel, for example, direct to consumer, might evolve over that time frame as well. And this is really, really powerful. Of course, it's not a perfect forecast, as has been proven through COVID, which have massively changed the adoption rates of online versus what we might have expected when we did this exercise 18 months ago. But it's still extremely important, because actually what we've been doing in Britvic when COVID came along is simply accelerating a strategy that we already had in place. Our 5-year plan just became an 18-month plan. We went faster. We weren't building something new. We put this plan onto a simple sort of plan on a page. And again, I find this simplicity, whenever we talk about online, is always the most powerful thing that we can work towards. This plan on a page became a currency that got translated around all levels of the organization, became a real focus of common purpose across teams and across levels that people began to focus on. And for me, the key metrics of that plan on a page, the ones that really matter, it's about the retail sales value opportunity and the online share. This is what really matters. This is what people focus in on. After that, focus in on which are the customers that are going to get you there, and which are the subcategories and the SKUs, the product range that is going to get you there. That's what we could answer by having done that sort of data crunching piece of work, that forecasting model that enabled us to really build a roadmap. Now, the growth can be split into momentum, channel momentum, into gap share closing, where we might under index versus our fair share with some of the retailers or channels, and then stretch plan. And there's two things on this that I think are important. First of all, momentum is not free growth. And I can't stress that enough. Just because the channel or the retailer is going to grow online, and that's momentum, the only way that you catch hold of the coattails of that momentum is by doing all the e-commerce fundamentals, all those execution basics really, really well. So it gives context to that first stage, those execution fundamentals that I talked about earlier. But the second part is also really important, maybe even more important, and that is that you will never get above fair share by simply doing the execution basics really well. And I don't know how many times I've heard people saying that they're going to get 120, 150 index online. We're going to get above our fair share online. We're going to do it by really focusing in on e-commerce great content. It's just not going to happen. It's not sustainable. I really passionately believe that you will only get fair share by doing the execution fundamentals really well. If you want to get ahead of share, you've got to start driving consumption. You've got to start adding value as we move shoppers from the offline to the online world. And so this leads us on to the last part of the presentation, which is about digital commerce. And really, this is about where we are today and where we're going in the future towards digital transformation within the organization. At its heart, it's really about connecting the various elements of the organization together, helping marketing and commercial teams, especially, to work much more closely together. And we do that through data, especially by combining our consumer insight and by owning and combining that with our shopper insight in a way that creates incremental value for the category and for our brand. Let me just give you a simple example. So imagine that we've got a family shopper, a shopper who's looking for cola. Maybe she's going to be looking for a 2-litre bottle of cola for the family to use. Now, she's going to be a .com shopper, and so we know from our shopper insight that she's going to be adding to basket on a Tuesday or a Wednesday. That's when this grocery shopping trip kind of gets done very often. What we also know is that she's going to be adding to basket at 9 o'clock at night. And that's very specific to the cola category. Other categories get added to basket other times of the day. But for cola, it's late at night. It's 9 o'clock at night. And why? Well, because this shopper is sitting on the sofa doing her weekly family shop while she's watching television. And during the ad break, she flips open her phone or her iPad and she adds items to basket. Well, that's extremely important for us to know, because if we're going to be briefing our media and teams and our advertising copy, we really want to know now that we need to be adding, much stronger call to action into our messaging on those TV campaigns to make sure that we're nudging her to add the right brand of cola to her basket. So that's where the insight, shopper insight and consumer insight need to work hand in hand. But this absolutely isn't just about online sales, actually far from it. For me, digital transformation is absolutely not about online strategy only, nor is it only about social media channels. When you look at the way categories are evolving, we talk a lot about the growth in online. But the reality is that even in categories that massively over-index in grocery.com sales, there's still majority purchased in physical stores. In cola, I think maybe a quarter of the category sales are now done online, but that still means that 75% of all the value sales are in physical stores. We've got to get the customer experience right in all of those physical channels, as well as in online. You absolutely will not win just by winning the battle online. And in fact, even more important when you consider the profit imperative of the online channel. So any grocery.com channel delivered to home, on average, is creating around an 8% higher cost to serve versus a physical store solution. Even on click and collect, it's still 3 to 4% more expensive to deliver through click and collect than it is into a physical store. That has some really important implications. Actually, it didn't matter too much when it was only 1% of category sales going through online channel. But when it's 25 or 30% of your business that's going through a channel that is an 8% margin dilution, that's really significant. And as I always say, you know, if you imagine a shopper who spent £200 a year on cola and they just bought that cola offline, and then we successfully migrate them to an online solution, and so they now spend £200 a year online, we've just down traded the category profitability pretty significantly. And so as we go forward, we need to be thinking about how we can create value as we move shoppers from offline to online. We can do it by leaning into the consumer trends, by looking at, especially post-COVID world, you know, which are the trends that are going to be really important, where we can start to create new consumption occasions. That's really important. But what we also need to be thinking about is how we connect the online and offline worlds together, start to serve the shopper wherever they are. And I always think the best mantra here is to remember that there are absolutely no online shoppers. There are just shoppers who also shop online. And we need to serve them wherever they choose to be, with the right service, the right pricing, and the right experience. So first-party data is at the heart of that. You know, understanding and being close to your shopper about the mindset they're in the different parts of the route or the shopping journey is extremely important. The challenge for us as big brand owners is very often that we don't really own a lot of first-party data when it comes to shopper insights. Very often our brands are sold through intermediaries and they own the data, and we, you know, buy the data from them. So this brings us on to the last of my examples, which is really about how do we as a brand start to create and get much closer to our shoppers and own some of that shopper understanding and insight. And so one example would be by working with someone like Zappit Rewards. So Zappit are a digital tech company, and essentially what they've done is digitized coupons. So in itself, that sounds quite straightforward. There are about 500 million paper-based coupons delivered and distributed each year in the UK. And, you know, that's not very shopper friendly, actually. People don't like paper-based coupons. Zappit have digitized that and deliver those coupons to your phone. Now, where you get a coupon from could come from all sorts of different channels. It might be that you are, as a consumer, responding to a social media ad, like a Facebook ad, or from a web campaign. Care lines, for example, that might send you a coupon. Even gaming, I've seen that they've done some things there where, you know, you play an online game, like a casual game, and as a reward for winning the game, you get sent a coupon. It doesn't really matter where that funnel comes from. What I would say is what Zappit do is they seed these campaigns and get a lot of organic traffic. And that means that the actual recruitment of these coupons can be effectively free, and by targeting carefully to your audience and making sure that you're connecting into some of the sort of community type sites. From a shopper point of view, it's a very frictionless experience. the shopper will get directed onto a simple sign-up page. This is for Magnum, for example, a live campaign. You'll see very simple login or sign-up information, name, address, phone number, and opportunity to opt in. And they just click OK. And the next thing that happens is they're going to get sent an SMS. So the SMS is going to appear on their phone. You click on it, click on the link, and now you're going to be downloading the coupon directly to your phone. So it's a really seamless and easy shopping experience. You end up with a nice coupon, and you'll see that this is for Magnum in Sainsbury's. It's a live campaign. It's got a time against it, so you could set this to be 2 or 3 or 4 hours. You could have it quite timely. You're going to be directed to a specific store. So this is only Sainsbury's stores. You can find your closest store. And what you'll see here is that as well, this is a barcode, and you'll see that that barcode that scans at till is at the moment locked out. And that's because what Zappit do is they use the geolocalization of your phone to work out whether or not you are in an actual Sainsbury's store. And you can't unlock the code and open the barcode unless you're physically standing in a Sainsbury's store. That obviously helps security, but anyway, these barcodes are also highly secure. You can't screenshot them, you can't share them. And that's important. It means that when I know that someone downloads and redeems this coupon, I know that that is absolutely certainly the person who originally downloaded it. They haven't shared it. They haven't been able to, pass it on to their friends. But of course, what's really interesting here is what this gives to us as brand owners. So the shopper downloads and redeems the coupon, which is great. But in the background, all of those signups are owned by the brand. So to give you an idea, a very well-known brand of tea is running a campaign at the moment in the UK that went live just this week, and now it's going live in the Co-op. And that campaign was seeded last week, and in the first 12 hours, there were 15,000 coupon downloads. So you can see that you get really big scale when you start to engage with these kind of campaigns. If you spent a sort of 10K sort of campaign, you could end up with 7,000 to 10,000 opted in shoppers in a database that you as a brand own. And that's really, really powerful data. Or 3,000 to 4,000 of those shoppers are going to go and redeem the coupon. And when they redeem the coupon, you get a lot of very rich insight because you know who downloaded that coupon, you know how long it took them between the download and them to redeem that in store, you know which store they redeemed it in, you know when they redeemed it. You start to build a very interesting picture of your shoppers and their habits. And then about a third of the shoppers who download the coupon and redeem the coupon will also leave a rating and review, which we know is extremely important. And so you end up here with this couponing campaign, but actually as a brand, owning a huge amount of really rich shopper data. And then we can start to play with that data in a way that creates really meaningful value and drives shoppers around a channel ecosystem that benefits us and drives additional consumption opportunities. For example, take our lady buying her cola. So we could add the QR code to our TV ad, which she then scans with her phone, because that works with those Zappit rewards, which means that the voucher gets downloaded to her phone that she can then apply or to a grocery.com order. So really timely way of engaging and nudging the closing of that sale. What we could also do is we could take that campaign, that coupon, and we could combine that with the retailer's own loyalty card data, so that when our shopper has added a 2-litre bottle of cola to her .com order, when she receives that order, we could immediately SMS her a coupon to reward her and drive her into a Tesco Express store, a convenience format store, in order to buy a 500ml bottle of that cola. So now we've incited an additional consumption opportunity and driven from .com directly back to convenience stores. Or As we own this data and it's our shopper data, what we could also do is take all those shoppers that have redeemed that coupon in a grocery store, and the ones who have left us a really positive review and are highly engaged with our brand, we could then retarget them with a campaign to direct them back to our own .com site, and we could sign them up for a subscription service driven directly off our .com site. And so there are really a lot of different ways, once we own the shopper data, that we start to be able to play, and we start to be able to engage with our shoppers in more interesting ways that can really help us to create value as we move shoppers from offline to online, rather than suffering from the margin dilution that otherwise we might suffer from. So that's really all I've got time for today. I hope that's been interesting. Just a few thoughts in terms of the work that we have done together over a number of clients, but especially at Britvic. I would say when it comes to driving a digital transformation program, the first thing that's really important is to make sure that you have a really clear vision of success, that ambition, that common vision of what success looks like, where you're aiming for in the sort of 3 to 5 year horizon is extremely important. Then, that rich data we've talked about and how we convert that into simple KPIs that the business can follow. Don't flood the business with loads of information, but get lots of data, have a really strong data analytics team, and then use that to create simple metrics that we can run the business by. Get to win the shopper at every touch point, online and offline. Absolutely, do not just zoom in on online, but really focus on thinking how I can drive the offline to online shopper journey and how I can use that to create new and incremental consumption opportunities. And lastly, I would say this is really everyone's job. In my experience, an e-commerce team never gets very far just if they are the sort of black box sitting in the corner, who are the specialists. In fact, what we need to do is open this out to the whole organization, make sure that our marketeers really understand and get access to that shopper insight, make sure that our commercial teams really understand how we can bring brand messaging to life through the way that channels are evolving. Make sure that it's everyone's job and everyone feels that they are a part of the journey. And with that, let me wrap up there, but I'm really delighted. Joe and I are both here and really happy to take any questions over the next couple of minutes.